Yo, you already know what it is. It's me, Tri-Town Tory, coming to you live in effect. And today, I have a really special guest, one of my homegirls close to my heart. Her name is Red. Hey, Red, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Today's a really great day. I woke up today and I chose violence. So I'm ready for some conversations. And the best person that I could ever bring to the table when I choose violence in the morning is my girl, Red. So, I want to ask you something, Red. What is something that you have seen in the news? And this could be random. This doesn't have to be huge. But you're just like, this is fucking stupid. Or this is dumb. Or I need to bring this up later because I want to really ream in on this. Do you have anything that you could think of off the top of your head?
I know that we wanted to talk about the Gabby case.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just want some stupid information I learned on the news recently, I can give you that real quick.
Let's do it.
You know freshwater eels?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how they reproduce. Like, we've never witnessed it in the wild. like we can make them do it. Like, if we catch them and put two eels into one cage and, like, pump them full of hormones, sometimes they'll do it. But in the wild, we don't even know where they mate. We have never found any eel eggs, freshwater eel eggs. We've never, they don't get their testes or anything till they mate. Kept them open. We've never found them in the mating stage, never found them in the larvae stage.
What is behind that?
We have no idea. We have seen almost every other animal do it in the wild, but not freshwater eels.
Well, see, humans are so fucking nosy that it surprises me that there's even a possibility that there's one thing that we don't have our nose inside of.
That's why we have, there's, people in England that are doing tests on it. And that's how we know that if we put them in a cage together and pump them full of hormones, they might do it. But it's very rare and it's very tricky. They don't like to. They're very shy, I guess.
So that's equivalent. That's equivalent to fluffing, like pillow fluffing in the porno world. So we fluff their pillow and literally we wait and hope and pray that we'll catch something that we haven't caught.
Yeah, but we can't catch it in the wild. Never caught in the wild. We've only been able to if we have them and do it in a scientific way. Can't just if we just go into the water. The also weird thing is that we know that where they do sort of breed, you know, we kind of know the area. We've never found the exact breeding ground, but we know the area. And it's near the Bermuda Triangle. And
are the eels I'm gonna be real with you. I'm really dumb when it comes to a lot of this, and I want information.
Okay.
Are the eels the one with electricity?
Those are electric eels.
There's electric versions to these fucking things, and then non-electric.
There's saltwater eels, and then those are usually then there's electric eels that tend to be saltwater eels, and then I guess there's freshwater eels. But the weird thing about freshwater eels is they're born in saltwater, then they go and live their life in freshwater, and then when they're ready to mate, they go back to saltwater.
So do we know how any kind of eel reproduces?
Yes, just not freshwater. That's the only one.
And we can't connect the dots, maybe there's some sort of similarities between...
I think it's more we know that they must mate a certain way, because like I said, we've caught them and we can make it happen in a laboratory, right?
Yeah.
But in the wild, we just never found eggs, never found larvae. We just can't find them actually doing it in the wild. It's only if we force it to happen with hormones.
Oh my god.
So I'm sure it's the same way as every other eel, but the point is, why can't we catch the freshwater eels doing it?
Exactly. I saw a clip one time in some third world country, and I'm not being derogatory to anybody, but it was really a third world country. These people were reaching inside of mud holes, and they were pulling eels out of mud holes, but they were pumping air or water into the hole to get them to pop their heads out or something. And I was thinking to myself, isn't that crazy that there's places in the world where people are subjected to eat things that maybe under conventional senses nobody would even touch?
Well, no, here's the thing. People do eat eels. In real life, the people in Japan eat eels. I think they eat eel eggs, because so we can do it. But now, just think about it. If you ever want to eat fish, eel eggs or whatever, so many hormones were pumped into that to make those eggs. Do you want to eat those now?
Well, shit, how many things do we eat that have hormones inside?
Right, but you know for sure that, we have to literally pump them full of so many hormones because they won't do it on their own.
Right.
With us watching, I guess.
Well, look at our chickens. Our poultry alone could be in the same category as the ills.
I guess I recently heard that they've changed a lot of laws, and like, don't quote me on this, but like they're lowering, especially with chickens. Like, chickens aren't pumped with as many hormones anymore. It's mostly cows and pigs that we still do that to.
Well, I'm glad that they
kind
found.
of leave chicken alone.
Well, what worries me is the fact that they had to actually make some sort of change in that regard.
Well, okay, think about it. If someone told you you can get chickens really fat by just pumping them full of hormones, and you don't have to deal with the consequences, like, why wouldn't you until someone says no?
Yes, but when the consequences show up to your door in an astronomical level because of the years of neglect of something that's been pushed through, then you got to really look at what you've done to people on a societal level.
People making money don't care. I mean, just look at the cigarette industry.
If they were
to know it causes cancer.
True, but this is the next cigarette tobacco thing. Because if you think about it, if we one day come to find out that all the hormones and things that we were pumping into the livestock that we were eating was shortening our life by 10, 15 years, depending on how frequently we ate these things, then it would be the next campaign in which we were really funding.
Right, but not to down what you just said, or destroy you or whatever, but it's definitely not lowering our lifespan by 10 or 15 years, because if that was the case, we used to live before hormones until average was 20, 35. And now we live to be between 80 and 90 on average. Well, so I kind of don't think it's the hormones being pumped in our food making us live less.
Well, that was before the GMO explosion.
No, that's still the GMO explosion.
That's not accurate. Our life expectancy has gone down. They put that in the news. Right,
but most of it has to do with the fact that we have such
suicide, opium,
the drugs, but a lot of the health one. Americans are very big people, and it causes a lot of issues on our body.
Yeah.
And it causes, and that's part of why Americans live less than other countries. We do have we have a higher chance for heart disease and blood issues and stuff, I guess, because the food we do eat.
Let's speak to the convenience of fast food and the ingredients of fast food and how GMOs play a part in that as well. Because a lot of the lettuce, tomatoes, things of that nature are not organic. They're created in a laboratory sort of situation. So it comes full circle back to what we're talking about in the long run. Because the fast food of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because I'm old enough to fucking say that, tasted differently than it does now. I remember I used to go to Burger King and I would have a fucking burger.
I can't stand Burger King. It doesn't taste good.
Yeah, but for this scenario, let's listen. Check this out. I had a burger. I took a bite out of it and it had a charbroiled, meat taste to it. I remember it as live as it happened yesterday.
Okay.
And this was when I was a kid. Today, you go take a bite out of a cheeseburger and it has kind of a bland...
metallic-y taste?
Yeah, well, not necessarily metallic-y, but a bland, dry, almost close to wheat, like bread taste to it. The meat doesn't have its own unique personality. But back when I was a kid, I would take a taste out of a Burger King burger specifically, and I remember it having such a meat taste to it. So I only bring that up and I only reiterate on it because I want to show the changes that they've been doing in the fast food world alone, because they're the first ones to implement certain scientific advances when it comes to saving money, and they cut their shit like a drug dealer.
Well, it's not. They put a lot of stuff that humans have, sugar and fat. We definitely love that kind of stuff, and carbs, and it is drugs to our body.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of that in it, obviously, because they want you to keep coming eating it. Fast food's not good for you. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Fast food's not good for you.
Sugar and carbs?
Yeah.
I don't think it's good for you.
Okay, you know how bad sugar is for us, and I didn't even realize this, and I love sugar. I love sugar. I watch a lot of history stuff, and in the Dark Ages, when we look at their skulls, they have all their teeth in. Maybe there's some erosion because they don't have toothpaste back then, right? But if you then look at a skull from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, when sugar first got introduced to us, the teeth are rotten all the way down. They're missing teeth. it's just there's so much tooth decay in the skulls. Like, that alone, even with, like, just the sugar alone just destroys our mouth and our teeth if we don't have toothpaste and stuff. When even, like, 20, 30 years ago before it, our teeth were fine. Without toothpaste even. No erosion, normal teeth to a degree for the dark age, you know? Isn't that weird?
What do you draw from that? What conclusion do you draw from that little piece that you just said?
Sugar is so fucking bad for us. It just like, without our modern technologies, like, because they went extreme with it. Like, they had an obsession with sugar, and they started doing they didn't know sugar was bad for you, right? They just thought of it as food. They didn't really think about what sugar was. And they would, rich people would pay bakers or whatever to come and, like, say you're sitting down. Pork was, like, a poor person's food, so, like, bacon was poor people food back then, right? So it's like, oh, it looks like bacon, and then your guests are like, ooh, you served us bacon, what are you, poor? And they're like, eat it, and it's made out of pure sugar, but it looks like bacon. And, like, they would have entire meals made out of pure sugar, but it looked like real food, and that was, like, fun for them. And they were like, haha, isn't this fun and, like, hilarious because we have so much money? But you were, like, rotting your teeth out, and it's not real food. And they would just have, like, sugar highs, basically.
Wow.
Like, imagine being someone who'd never had sugar once in their life, because remember, sugar's new to these people. You're drinking wine, sugar, mead. That's all. That's all.
That's fucking that's crazy.
Adults jumping off the walls. Teeth rotting out of their skulls.
What time period was this again?
The Middle Ages. Like, I think 14, 15, 1600s, that kind of thing.
I find that time period really fascinating. Because in school, in movies, and everything, they sell you one version of things, of events. It's really easy to digest, really easy to understand. And it makes it seem like everything was just forest land and there was castles. And people acted accordingly within the hierarchies of these castles. And that was that.
Well, I mean, they kind of did, I guess.
In what regard?
So, yeah, these people lived in castles, and then the poor people were serfs, basically. I mean, that's what they were. They were just serfs. They just belonged to the duke or whatever. But I guess
slaves. Yeah, slaves.
They were basically just slaves. I mean,
yeah.
They weren't, but they were. You know what I mean?
Story of life.
I just mean, like, every other, like, it's so funny how, like, so many different things were happening at, like, the same time, right? So the same time as, like, Henry VIII is running around doing his shit, right?
Yeah.
At that same time, you have the Ottoman Empire where they have, like, a harem and all of that bullshit going on.
Yeah.
And running their shit and taking over the Mediterranean. And then in, like, the 1800s, when you have, like, Victoria and stuff, you have Imperial China, and they're still running, like, they're still doing things. You would not notice a difference from, like, 1500s to probably the 1800s Imperial China. It's so, they just do the same thing.
Speaking to the traditions.
Yeah, like, they're so traditional. They'd be, like, at that time frame, how they're acting, they're probably 200, 300 years technically behind everyone else.
At that time.
Yeah, because they didn't have industrialization. They were finally letting people, like Europeans, come through and everything and being introduced to each other's cultures and everything. But an example of, like, with the Ottomans and the English would be, like, so the Ottoman Empire, even though it's around the same time as Henry VIII and everything, right?
Yeah.
They are all loyal to their sultan or whatever. So all the viziers, the grand viziers, all of that, the dukes of that country, basically, they all are loyal to him. So he appoints them, he fires them when he wants to. They don't get to get loyalty with the people. Whereas in England and France and all of that, at the same time period, the king basically works for the dukes. Because the dukes have control over all of the money and the people, technically. Because if a duke doesn't like you, he could get his whole area to rise up and revolt against you. Because the people are loyal to their duke, and then the duke is loyal to the king. Whereas in the Ottoman Empire at the same time, the people are loyal to the king, no one else.
And this reminds me of how passionate you are about the specific time period that you've been, because you show me different like videos and things of that nature. Do you think in the future that we can go so far left in a direction where we end up back in a digital medieval time? Like
I don't think so.
Futuristic version of it?
That would only happen if like the entire world fell apart. But even then, like with how...
As we are on the brink of such?
Yeah, but with how like we're all... Our mindset and everything, right? Back then...
Because that was government.
Right, it's all government and everything.
But it's a localized government. And that's the piece that I think brings it all together.
It's possible if like there was no civilization, like all governments fell apart, we would maybe go back to that.
Isolated pockets.
Exactly. There'd be like little warring areas, but I don't think... I mean, I think it would take a very long time to get anywhere near like having someone have their own country or empire. It would just be like having a bunch of little tribes running around again, or clans.
Okay. I love you said that, because we were talking about China, and you just said that right there. China erased a big chunk of their history and rebuilt the modern world China, the super China, in a span of not even 100 years.
Because they were kind of behind with like the imperial
harem. But the timing.
Yeah.
The technology. And I'm only midway. I'm only halfway.
Okay.
Because I want you to kind of add to this. The possibility of something even faster happening to a power like, let's say, Russia, or even a Middle Eastern power, like let's say Iran. Okay? Is it possible that we could see another China in one of these smaller countries because of the abundance of resource and money and power and technology? And if so, could we start to see the same way Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and all these guys are building rockets and all sorts of shit, countries that are building kingdoms in this digital context, where we'll have super countries that are using technology like electromagnetic weaponry and all sorts of things going at each other?
Again, that would only happen if all governments fell apart, and then it would still take a while for people to get big enough to become like a power to that. Because China had a little special advantage. They were behind everyone, sort of, by the time they got their industrial revolution. And they were given permission to pollute their fucking air and do things that the other countries weren't doing anymore, because we knew they were bad for the environment, for a certain amount of time in order to catch themselves up to us in our industrial period. Because in order to get to the period we're at now, there is a time frame where you have to do like the stuff that we did in like the Victorian era and everything like that.
And I could be completely
So they were
wrong.
given special things where like they were allowed to do that. Now they're cleaning up, like they hit their time frame and they're now cleaning up their space to make up for that. And they really polluted the shit out of their country in order to get where they are.
Yes. And I feel like these certain countries, they're able to do such things and blend it in with other things to make it look as if they're not guilty of creating that sort of conflict for the world to deal with on a massive scale.
See, but they have to be really good about it, because like look, in North Korea we found out they were making nuclear weapons, and then it became widespread that everyone knew about it, and then they're like, well, we're gonna do it anyways, and everyone's like, yeah,
well, they were attempting to.
You're not gonna do that anyways.
Because everything they have is Russia or China based.
Well, it's because other countries don't have the legal rights to do it. And the minute, if any country starts trying to do it that doesn't have the right to do it by the United Nations or whatever, I think they're the ones that give people permission, usually people find out. Because people talk. And there's always someone that is more than willing to sell you out to another country.
You know what I think is interesting? Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, completely educate me if I'm ignorant. But the World Health Organization China has a huge influence in the World Health Organization.
They have a huge influence. They're one of the main powers, yeah.
They're almost the World Health Organization themselves. Okay? So when we look at that, and And then we look at the United Nations. We know that that's a completely different situation.
Yeah, the WHO and the United Nations are two different things.
Yes, but I'm talking about the countries that still have access and participation inside of. China has more pull in the World Health Organization than it does in the United Nations.
Yeah, because people don't like China.
In the United Nations overall, but why in the health aspect in the World Health Organization they do have?
It's the same reason why we have, like, China and Russia and America hate each other, right? But if you go up into space, we're all getting along up there, and we all have space stations with each other. It's literally because humans are deciding that our want to advance as a society outweighs our conflicts with each other. It's more beneficial to all of but even with the health thing, it's more beneficial to every country not to be letting one country have entire diseases, because diseases are not controllable, and you cannot control them the way they're going to go erratic. So if you're letting one country be sick and you're ignoring them and just like, fuck you, that's your problem, it's eventually going to make its way into your country, and maybe it's mutated at that point.
So do you think that overall, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the table of the world, every single country that matters, and I hate to say it in that manner, but we're being bold because we want truth.
What's the superpowers? But yeah,
the superpowers at the table, they're on all agreements on almost everything.
Well, it's because how the United Nations works, from my understanding when I took my political science class, is that, like, there's the superpowers where we are, and there's like a certain amount of countries that are like the main voting power, and then we kind of just let the other smaller countries talk. Like, they're involved, they get to talk and tell us, but the main people who get to vote on it are the main superpowers.
So who calls the shots? Is it a majority rules?
The U.S., Britain, I don't think Germany might be a superpower. France.
After World War II, I think they'd be secondary.
No, after World War II, they were invited in eventually. That was a big thing, is that everyone wanted.
But at that shadowy decision-making table.
Yeah, I think they're. Let me look it up. Let me look up who the superpowers are.
Because when you said Britain, I almost didn't think they were involved.
Yeah, I'm almost sure they are. Let me 1 second.
Because I feel like strongman countries are the only ones that are at the table.
They're pretty strong. They have a crazy strong navy.
But they don't have a strongman dictator or like leadership.
Yeah, they do. They have the Queen doesn't run them.
Parliament?
The Parliament runs them.
They're not strong arm. They're more left leaning. Because strong arm's more right leaning. At least if we were to use the political lens in which they judge everything off of. Like
the great powers.
Look at the dictator who was in the Philippines who was killing drug dealers.
Yeah.
They said that was right-leaning. Like, in a worst-case scenario, Trump could do the same equivalent inside of America if he was allowed to have that sort of reign.
Permanent members of the UN, that's what it's called. 1 second. Permanent members of the UN are the 5 sovereign states to whom the UN Charter of 1944 grants a permanent seat of the United Nations Council. China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, and the United States. We have permanent membership. So China has permanent membership.
One more time? What was it?
So the people who have permanent membership on the United Nations Council are China, France, Russia, the UK, and the US.
Okay, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
It's not Germany, but you're right. But it's China, France, Russia, the UK,
it's
and
the old world powers and the new world powers together.
Yeah, it's like when we all mixed after the World War II.
It's like in the rap world, the top 5 best rappers ever are 3 new rappers and 2 old rappers. It's the same fucking thing. Okay, so this is fascinating because I don't even want to say this, but the old Germany, the one that was very historically looked down upon.
Oh, but that was actually just a very small part of Germany, but yeah.
Yes, but they were on the rise to creating some sort of because I'm gonna be objective, okay? They were ahead of time when it came to aerial advances. They created the first UFOs. Germany did.
Yeah.
If you watch any of the documentaries, look it up. They created a way to create anti-gravity, right? Okay. So of course, a power like America was going to want to smash them and then collect the assets that country had to give. So that's what Operation Paperclip was.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
Sort of, but continue.
Paperclip was when we took all of the German geniuses and spread them out amongst the superpowers that won.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the guy who ran NASA, his name slips my mind. Vonderberg. I don't want to be ignorant, but the guy who ran NASA literally was a German asset. And you knew them because they fenced and they had scars that they had in their face, and it was a marking that you were high up in the military rankings within the Germany hierarchy as far as military went. Okay. So what I'm trying to exemplify is the old Germany. The way that they were ahead of their time in a lot of senses. I mean, let's be real. I'm going to exclude the horrors that they did because they were against humanity.
Well, that's why, but see, that's the problem is you can't exclude that because the reason that they were able to be more advanced than everyone is because every other country, sort of, I mean, I'm sure the governments of every country does whatever the fuck they want to do to a degree, but there are rules about what we can do for science, right? It's the same reason why we test on monkeys before we test on humans.
Okay.
But the Germans...
And I'm completely ignorant, yeah. So you're educating me completely.
The Germans tested on the Jews.
Yes.
So they just... Anything that they wanted to do, they were curious about, they just tested on people. So they were able to get more advanced than everyone because they went straight to the thing that you'd be attacking, whereas everyone else has to slowly work their way up to it.
But Russia did the same thing too.
No, Russia does too. Russia still does it to their own people, from my understanding.
But they're oddly more accepted than Germany is.
They cover it up better than Germany did. Germany was a little more too upfront about it.
Because Russia did the first some sort of like human key sort of thing where they tried to fuse human and monkey genes.
Yeah, no, Russia does a lot of sketchy shit, but that's because they do that to... They do it to war criminals, from my understanding. Which, I mean, I guess that's kind of like how the Jews view... I mean, how the Germans view the Jews, I guess, maybe. But they do it to war criminals, and then I think people just piss off the government. But they hide it. Like we know about it because people talk. But even in those, like some of it's considered like false things. Like it's not mainstream things that like we talk about in the news, right? Germany was very upfront about it and didn't hide what they were doing because they were proud of it.
Right.
They were proud of it. Russia's a little more sneaky about it. That's what the difference is.
Okay, so, and I'm just freestyling through conversation. When you said that they were proud of their horrendous acts that they were doing, it mirrors the South of America. Not South America, but the South.
Of America, yes.
The Confederate States.
I understand what you mean.
The way that they were portraying the lifestyle down there.
Yeah.
Okay. What I think is really interesting is how you'll hear modern day African Americans speak about the South, like in the South areas where the Confederate flag still tries to fly. Yeah. They'll say that it's heritage over anything else. There's a flag represents heritage, and it comes off to me that they are brainwashed by the shit that they hear these motherfuckers say, and they say, yeah. I mean, these guys are my fucking friends. They treat me this... I mean, I work with them. You know, I live in the same spaces that they do. They don't hate me. They like me. But it's really a heritage of deception.
It's like... He's right. I mean, those people are right. They don't hate you. Well, they probably don't, right?
Right.
That's why they treat you. But you have to think about how maybe they don't act when you're not around.
Yes.
What's inside what they actually think.
Heart,
yeah, right? What's in their heart. Like maybe they think that you're not like those other ones.
Yes.
You're like us.
But they still think that there's other ones.
Exactly, and that's the problem. Also, I don't know why you would want your heritage to be related to anything like that. It'd be embarrassing to me.
You know what I like in it too? Growing up where you would hear white people and just certain pockets of white people say, you don't like other Mexicans. This doesn't apply to you.
Yep.
The fact that I've heard that a number of times really let me know that there are two different sets of mindsets when it comes to anything. There's pro and con. And it's as simple as that. You're either pro me being next to you in the workplace, pro me coming over to pick up your daughter to go on a date, pro me marrying that same girl, pro me this and that and the third. But the thing about it is the only people who reach that fucking level of acceptance and understanding and knowledge are the ones that truly go against the grain. Because the grain is to go in the opposite direction. So much so that I don't even think that a lot of people were purposely racist. They were just adjusting to the environment and the condition and the climate of the time. Because let's be real, how many women went against the grain and had interracial relations with people of color and created beautiful mixed children that changed the world. It's happened so many times that we don't have enough time to speak on everything. Because that's the way that the world works. The things that are done in the dark either destroy the individual or enhance the group.
Here's an example with my grandpa, right?
Yes.
They're either Blackfoot Indian or something else happened. We're not completely sure. But he gets very dark in the summer, but he's very white in the winter, right?
Because he's heritage.
He's Blackfoot or something like that. Like he has Native American in him. He gets very, very tan. Very tan. Almost like dark. It's kind of crazy. And his own dad wouldn't take him to town with him in the summer because he said he looked like he was black. And he didn't even want to be seen with him, even though he knew he was white. Everyone else in town knew he was white, but he wouldn't be seen with him. I'm like, that's all cultural based, right?
Yes.
Because then everyone else knows that he's not, but they still have this like weird prejudice against it, so they can't get past that.
It's like some childhood development shit.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So it's like, because again, like I said, he knows his son's white. Everyone else in town knows his son's white. So why does it matter? Because they lived in a small town. It's not like not everyone knew everyone. They lived in the South.
See, that's why I love being friends with you, because you bring me back to the understanding that nuance exists in every situation in life. Even the people who are racist or come off as racist, if you were to stretch their life and look at every spectrum of everything that they've been through, you're going to find the point of where they were converted into their way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always some external force. It's never internal. The reason why we feel the way we feel about racism is because we think it's something that seeds from the inside and spews outwards, when that's not necessarily the case.
It's taught.
It's more so conditioning and environmental.
Yeah, I mean, because kids aren't racist. It's not. Parents tell them to be.
Parents, media, whatever your dad's watching or listening to on the radio.
Mm-hmm. Whatever everyone else is saying around you.
Rush Limbaugh, or rest in peace, or like all these, horrible figures, but I can understand the effect that they had on culture. Like Rush Limbaugh, he said something about a black African American basketball team being nappy-headed hoes, or something as if.
Ooh.
Yes, it was very nasty. He said it on the radio, and he got essentially canceled before cancel.
I mean, that's fair.
Very fair. But this is somebody who his base was huge. I wouldn't call it Howard Stern huge, but radio before internet, we can imagine.
Well, it's also, I mean, with that, even if a lot of his base maybe agreed with him, right?
Yes.
Is something about saying it out loud, too. Especially now that we're in a society where that's not appropriate completely, but maybe it was taught to you.
Because it's in your head, not because you necessarily agree with it. Because you said saying it out loud. We all think things in our head because of what we go through in our life. Mm-hmm. We see things on TV or whatever the situation is. Well, the thing is,
maybe subconsciously they think that about those people, but they would never say it out loud because they know how inappropriate that thought is and how rude it is. So for him then to say it out loud, everyone's like, ooh, so you really are a shitty person. And it makes people not like you because you decided to say the nasty thing inside your head. It's like when you have intrusive thoughts and it's like, cut off your hand. And you're like, I don't want to cut off my hand. But like, if you fucking did it, you'd be a fucking crazy person.
Or drive this car off the cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, it popped in your head, but if you do the action, then you might look crazy, or you might, like, people are going to judge you a little bit.
You know what I always felt like that was? We take in so much visual and audio stimuli, so much, and we watch so many things that are out of our spec of, like, our what we would ever do in our life, right? Where these extreme things get portrayed to us in a conveyor-like aspect when we're thinking, and we just blurt out the first thing that pops into our head.
Well, it's like our brain is just a meaty computer, if anything, running a big meat suit of blood and organs. I mean, it's if you think about it.
M-I-D-I, meaty, right? Like
anytime we ever learn anything about our brain, it's our brain learning something about itself. Because the brain didn't know it worked like that. But it just learned that that's how it worked.
But isn't it like computers? How computers connect to other computers as a network? and then learn from each other. Information.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
That's the brain.
Well, the brain, it can just take in so much information, and it's going to...
It shares information.
Yeah, an example of, like, it not working right is, like, when... No offense to anyone, but like if you have Tourette's or whatever, right? You randomly say things that pop in your head, or you have the movements,
right? Because if you have a compulsion,
and you can get someone to start doing something. So if you do an action and their brain's like, "Ooh, I like that action," they'll start doing or saying that phrase, and you just gave them a new tick,
like a TikTok, like a trend.
Yes, but like to their brain. So like that would be like an extreme version of like. Your brain just takes in information and then does things with it.
Is it like...
and if it's not, like, when we say things that we... Like, when you blurt things out sometimes, right?
Sheesh.
Yes.
like that,
I've heard that so many fucking people who have Tourette's hate that because they now do it. Sheesh. And they're like, I hate my life.
Dude, you know what I think is so amazing about it? I think that we realize that there's certain things that release like dopamine or like make us feel better, and we create an encapsulated version of it, and then we share it on a medium like TikTok, and then other people adapt it at such an alarming rate that it starts to pop up everywhere like fireworks. And like, I'm gonna speak specifically to something like sheesh. And it's something that's been around forever because people say sheesh, like, good grief. Like,
it's just a fun word to say if you go sheesh.
I've seen people scream it across parking lots.
That would kill me.
And I love it so much because I know it makes them feel good, and I feel good hearing it. But it's like that. It's like things of that nature. And you know what? Previous generations would never understand. Because they're not wired to understand something like that. But it speaks to a brain sensor. Yeah. I believe, because literally when I hear like something like that or something that makes people feel good in general and I can absorb it, oh my god,
your brain's like, I want that.
It's like we're doing something right now.
It's because dopamine being released, and it's a drug being released into your brain. Your brain's like, ooh, can I have more of that?
Exactly.
Your brain just loves dopamine. That's really what it is. Every brain loves dopamine.
It's a transfer of information. Like, for example, the first people that figured out that you could get peyote from a cactus, that had to be transferred verbally and shown visually.
Oh no, I imagine that what happened was someone was thirsty and they probably saw an animal drinking it, so they drank it, got fucking high. You know, that weird shit that happens when you drink cactus juice, and then they're like, dude,
the second part's what
come
I was
here.
speaking to.
Yeah, come here. I want to show you this part. Come here. It's
part
like,
B. Yeah.
I was learning about Aztecs, and they made this like chocolate sauce, right? You know, like mole and everything.
Uh-huh.
But they also found out that you could ferment it, and they would make alcoholic, basically, chocolate drink. And that's what they drank.
Like mudslide.
So they're all fucking drunk on chocolate. That's a good time to them.
Yes.
They're just drunk on chocolate. Like, they figured out how to make alcoholic chocolate, and they were like, this is what we want.
One day, me and you were going to do a deep dive about the sacrifice culture.
Oh no, I've been watching this thing called Weird History. Dude, I'm just saying, I wasn't understanding there's like that meme going around right now where like everyone's joking about how like it's not aliens, like you're just racist for like thinking the buildings. And before, you know, I'd watch Ancient Aliens and I'm like, you know, you're right. How did people of that time age make that when we're over here doing this dumb shit in this country? But then I was watching it and they're talking about how they had soap. They were making soap and toothpaste out of this fucking plant. They had like tunnels for their water and their fucking waste. Otherwise, fucking 500 years later, fucking France, Marie Antoinette's getting fucking waste dumped on her from a chamber pocket from someone's fucking roof. That wouldn't happen in Aztec. That wouldn't happen over there. They have a canal for that shit.
Yeah.
They have bathhouses. They clean themselves. They didn't think bathing was a weird thing that you're gonna die from. Like, I'm like, nah, you know what? We're just stupid over here. White people are just stupid. I know, I learned that, like, when the Spanish came over to Aztecs, they burned incense and, like, smelling oils all the time. And if you look at both of their recordings of meeting each other, right? The Spaniards thought that the Aztecs were doing it because they were being nice, and they were trying to show respect to their guests, right? Like, the nice smelly things, right? And the Aztecs were like, oh my god, these Spaniards stink. And we don't want to smell it, because apparently it was a horrible smell. And they didn't like stink.
Imagine dealing with that on a societal level.
Well, because Aztecs also had deodorant, and the Spaniards did not. They didn't have toothpaste, they didn't have nothing, but they had sugar, and we know what sugar did to your teeth. Like, Aztecs had all their teeth. They actually were fucking implanting jewels into their fucking teeth. They, like, for up to the Victorian time, getting your teeth pulled out, extremely painful experience. Aztecs, we're gonna put some snake venom in you and some other herbs or something. It's gonna numb your whole mouth. We rip out the tooth, no pain.
You know what's amazing? People say, what a time to be alive. And literally, it takes a whole nother meaning when you think about that in the historical context in which you just described.
You also just be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Because the same time period, Aztecs using soap and deodorant, Mary Annette getting poop thrown on her.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. But I'm talking about us. Like, the fact that we're in modern times and we escape so much.
Oh my god, I could not be born in those time periods.
But you said something very fascinating right now.
What?
You did the whole Flintstones Jetson thing, but you put it in the context of our history.
Oh, yeah.
That was fascinating.
So now, but here's the thing, now I understand. I'm like, maybe the Aztecs and the Egyptians did build those pyramids without aliens. Because maybe white people are just stupid.
So, because I'm slow at processing information that I hear, but I know it's good. What were the two time periods that you just put side by side?
Okay, so the Spaniards, so before the Spaniards showed up, which was like the 1500s, that's when the Aztecs were, like, before that they already had soap and everything. Then the Spaniards come over, and then Mary Annette's like the 1700s.
Where is that?
The 1700s, so like 200 years later. She's still getting poop thrown on her, and the Aztecs have soap.
So it's a decline.
It's like,
what you're saying.
Yeah, the white people were, like, we got introduced to, the Spaniards got introduced to this stuff. You'd think they would have took it back to Europe. Spain's right next to France, but 200 years later, Mary Annette's still getting fucking poop thrown on her, and she's a queen.
Okay, so that brings a different scenario, because I initially thought you were saying that two time periods were running parallel to each other, but in two different worlds, because of resources.
Well, they technically were too, because if you think about it, if the Aztecs had all of that stuff, and were using that stuff before the Spaniards, and then the Spaniards came over, and the Aztecs were like, you guys are gross. Mm-hmm. That means still at the same time period.
Yes.
They're being
200
gross.
years.
Yeah, they're like, and also around 200 years is when they discovered sugar.
Before the internet, you're right. 200 years is a lot closer in the time before the internet than after the internet.
Because we didn't move as quickly. Like, there wasn't, like, basically, when things changed, it was about every 100 years something changed. Even fashion wasn't that quick.
Revolutions.
Yeah. Well, not even, like, what I mean is, like, even fashion somewhat doesn't, like, it moves so quickly nowadays, right? But back then, you could have the same style for the longest time. That's why we can look at, like, period shows, and we're like, oh, yeah, we know what year that's in. Because of the clothes. But those clothes last for, like, so long. Like, we know it's, like, this time to this time frame. Like, an example of, like, that.
We document that. We trademark it.
Yeah, example of that is, like, to a degree, with, like, all the Tudor queens and everything, they wore the same. Like, the Tudor dynasty, the fashion was the same. It's considered Tudor fashion. And that was Henry VII, then Henry VIII, then Edward, whatever the fuck he was. There's a lot of Edwards. Then Mary, and then Elizabeth. That's 5 kings and queens, and they were just wearing the same fucking clothes. It's 5 different ones. And, like, okay, yeah, some of them, 2 of them didn't rule very long, but, like, still, like, 10 years each. It's a long time, y'all wearing the same clothes, basically, the same fashion.
Since I like to turn the steering wheel hard left and hard right, because I want to take the conversation in a weirdly odd direction, can we talk about Afghanistan?
Oh no, why?
Well, maybe not just Afghanistan, but let's talk about the Middle East.
Okay.
And I heard something interesting. This is not necessarily what I believe, but I remember listening to, like, a Sam Harris podcast, where he was talking about how far behind the Middle East, some of the Middle Eastern countries were, because of the way they believed how society should go. Like, when it came to the women, when it came to the schooling, when it came to, like, how the country was ran, almost from an organized crime sort of.
So aspect. Honestly, I feel like the Middle East was above us on everything, and then I would say after the World War, the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the World War I and II is when everything went downhill. Because I say because I got into the Ottoman Empire, and I started watching this show. It's in Turkish. It has subtitles. It's called Beneficent Century, and it's like a soap opera about the Ottoman Empire.
Let's talk about the above.
And so, in this country, how they had it set up, and I don't think this was really on the outside world too much. It mostly was probably in the harem, probably. But the women were educated in everything because the rule was the Sultan fucks you. You get one son, and then you guys are paired up for a battle to the death against all his other concubines. You also have one son. And whoever wins, the other sons get executed. So they made the women very educated. In this harem, they were very educated. They were educated to the same level as like a noble boy or whatever. Because they are going to help their sons run the country once they win this game.
Fuck.
Game of murder.
It's Hunger Games. I'm like processing this. This is what they were doing?
Yeah, so how it works is the Sultan has a harem, and the harem has his
So he's impregnating all these women.
Yeah, so he has, so how it works is that they have the harem has his family in it. So his mom, his sisters, and his sons live in the harem until they hit like 13. That's when they get circumcised too, I think. It's a whole thing. It's weird. They circumcise them when they're like 13. It makes no sense.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
so, then... they like, I guess what they would do is the women have this like bath that they would just bathe in because it was like very fun. They can't leave the harem, but apparently it was like heaven on earth. It was really great. Lovely.
Wonder why.
Yeah. And so you chill, and if you were pretty enough, because just because you were a concubine of the Sultan doesn't mean you're sleeping with him.
Whoa,
you might also,
really?
yeah, so you might also just be like, there's a lot of, there's a lot of jobs that need to be done in the harem. And so, like, there would be people who were in charge of sewing clothes or cleaning. And then there would be some concubines whose jobs is to take care of his his concubines that he did have children with, that he did like. They might just, like, be ladies in waiting to all of them and take care of them and help them and follow them around. Like, you don't have to sleep with them because all of these women in this harem, except for his family, are slaves. They're slaves. You don't, like, even if you give him a kid, so, like... You give him, so his mom picks who he sleeps with, by the way. So they're in this big tub, and his mom, they don't show this in the show, this is just historical part. They point, and they choose some women for him, and then he comes and watches them bathe and chooses the one he wants. Then he sleeps with them until they're pregnant. Like, they will just stay in his room sometimes for a week. Just, his visors do his job. Who knows? He then, as soon as they get pregnant, if they give him a son, he's not supposed to ever sleep with them again. You get one son. If you get a daughter, then he might sleep with you again until you get a son. You get one son. Oh. Then he never sleeps with you again. Oh. And then...
It's like pit bulls.
Yes, and then you just raise that son, and then when the Sultan dies, it's not the oldest that becomes king. All of them are options. And so what they all want is they all want to get there to the main place, because also they're all sent to provinces to rule if they're old enough. So they get to run an area to like train to be Sultan when like you all could die. So then after the Sultan dies, they all fight with the visors. They're all trying to get, like, the whole time that he's alive, the concubines and everything, their mothers, are trying to get visors to like their sons better, right? Make people like them better and everything. So then when they choose who's going to be Sultan, maybe there's a war. It's supposed to prevent war, because like in England, if you had multiple sons, they all have a right to the throne. So there might be lots of war over who's going to get the throne because they don't like that they lost. But the Ottomans thought, well, I can fix that. So when he becomes king, he can legally execute all of his brothers, no matter how old they are. And he is expected to do it. And that was okay for a while, until some people started having too many sons. So Sultan Suleiman fell in love with one of his concubines. He frees that concubine, only concubine to be freed.
Ever?
She's the first, yeah. She's like the only one that's ever been freed. First one too. He made a whole new title for her. Because she actually became empress, because he legally married her. The Sultan doesn't marry anyone.
What kind of power does she have? Like, holy shit.
Almost equal to him, in that sense. Like,
I mean over him.
Oh yeah, no. People thought that she was a witch. They called her a witch.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and she became super fucking powerful. And then her son, Selim, because she had 5 kids for him. first one to have multiple kids. Her son Selim then also decided, I prefer monogamy over my consorts as well. And he fell in love with his consort and married her. So she probably became free then too. It doesn't say it straight up, but I'm assuming that that's what happened because he can't be married to a slave. So becomes free. She has one son for him, so he has to sleep with other concubines because he doesn't have enough heirs and people aren't very happy about it. He dies. Then another sultan became in charge, and he liked sex a little too much. And in his harem, there was always a cradle rocking. He had over 100 children. A lot of sons.
So he hit the morphine button over and over.
He chose monogamy at the beginning with this one girl. And his mom convinced him to sleep with these two other concubines instead. Because she thought that woman was getting too much power over him. And he realized, I like sex and I like other women. And then he just went fucking nuts. And the people were not happy after that. Because that's so many sons that got murdered and tiny coffins.
Wow.
Tiny coffins. Because the guy who came in charge, he was a fucking lunatic.
So it was just a genocide.
He murdered babies, everything.
Because of the fact that he just wanted to have sex.
Like the Sultan had so many kids that when his son became in charge, his son murdered so many people because he's supposed to.
But when you boil it down, that's what it was.
No, it's genocide because there was so many of them, so many sons.
I wrote down something because I wanted to go on a side note for real quick. Witch talk. When you mentioned the fact that she had so much power because it was almost like she was a witch, I want to talk about modern times real quick. And I want to talk about this whole culture that's kind of on TikTok that I've observed almost in a spectator sort of way. Okay. And it's the mentality that women that know how to get what they want to a certain extent and almost have a mystique to them consider themselves witches. And there's this whole witch talk.
It's, from my understanding, it's almost taking back the narrative because in the past, if you were a woman that was very comfortable with your sexuality or even just wore red lipstick or something like that,
yes,
you would be considered a witch, and that was a great way to get rid of you because you were talking too much. That's where it comes from. So
it's the fear of women empowerment, almost in a sense. A woman who is so empowered that she will take the more of aggressive stance in things. Like, for example, instead of getting played, she plays somebody. Right. Like with the girl I just said to her, right? Yeah. They thought that he just had a kink for Russian redheads because that's what she was. And red.
Yeah, and the visors brought in her and his mom and everything brought in 2 Russian redhead concubines as gifts for him. And she just cried and begged for him to send them away because it hurt her so much. And he said, okay, and he sent away all of his concubines that he was going to sleep with. Like, the only ones that were left were the servant concubines, basically. The ones he wasn't going to that extent? He married them all off. No more concubines. Only her. Because she had a way to tap into his brain. He had, like, and she wasn't even the prettiest. Her name literally means joyful. His first concubine, the one that was his original favorite, Madaravan, or whatever, I can't say the name, it's Turkish. It means beauty, and she was literally, even now, it's considered that she was the prettiest person in his harem, his most beautiful. But he liked the fucking redhead more because she made him laugh. Literally, they liked poetry and they liked to laugh, and like we have their letters, and that's just all they did. You know what's crazy? That formula still works to this day. Yep. She had that much power just because she made him laugh, and they liked poetry together. How long ago was this? In hundreds of years? I think Suleiman was king in like between the 1100 or 1200s, something like that. So it's almost 1,000 years that this girl was ahead of her time. Yeah, she created something we now call that age the Sultanate of women because of her. Because after that, women were able to get really powerful in the Ottoman Empire until one woman got way too powerful, and then the rest of the Qasim. What's her deal? She was like a slave brought from like Venetia, so she's half Greek, half Venetian. And Ottoman loved her, and he had some other concubines, but that was his favorite. And when he died, she figured out that she could be regent because he had young children. He wasn't sultan very long, and he was very young when he became sultan. Yeah. They actually emphasized how young he was because he wasn't circumcised yet, and he had to be at becoming sultan. It was a big deal, apparently. I don't know, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal. In different like religions and like it's a cleanliness thing. It really is. For most of them, it's considered a cleansiness thing. That's why it got started, yeah.
Because of dick cheese?
Yeah, make it clean. Well, back then, they didn't bathe. So, like, yeah, you need to be a little cleaner. We don't have modern technology.
Okay, let's not get off our point. You were on a tangent. Let's go.
So,
that direction.
Sorry. So, she realized she could be a regent for her sons, right?
Yeah.
And she was. And whenever one of her sons stopped listening to her and wouldn't do what she wanted, she had them executed. She did it to multiple sons, and she was even regent for her grandson.
Shit.
She was alive for 5 sultans.
Isn't that the equivalent to boarding school?
Yeah.
Send him to boarding school.
It was 5. She was alive for 5 sultans, 4 of which would have been hers. 3 would have been her sons, and 1 would have been her grandson, and the first one was
Could
Ottoman.
you have survived in that time period as one of them?
You know, I've thought about when I watched this show and how I would do it if I was one of those bitches in the harem.
I want to hear this.
Get you a son or a daughter. Maybe just get some daughters. Like, who? Fuck the son. Give me a daughter, because
that's you being counterculture.
No. You
For
don't.
That time
No,
period.
you want to know why fuck the son?
Why?
He's gonna die if he doesn't become king. I'm gonna have to go fighting with all the other concubines, and if he doesn't become king, he's gonna die.
Okay, so you're going against the grain in the sense where you don't necessarily want to.
And the only reason I want the children is
you don't
because
want the glory.
No, but the only reason you want the children is because you get treated better. You're not a slave concubine then. You get to sit in your little house with your money. You get a budget every month. You get to just chill in all your pillows and food.
A budget?
Yeah. So the reason that it's considered the harem was considered heaven is it's quoted from some of them that it's the only place in the world where you could start off a slave and die a sultana.
So it's America.
Yeah, basically you come in as a slave, and if you're pretty enough and you play it right, you die a sultana, which is a queen.
Dude, that's our country.
Yeah.
Because literally, you say the right things, you do the right things, the right facial expressions, you say the right everything.
Right, that's why you want to stay under the radar. That's why you get the daughters, because then I get the nice area, right?
Right.
And I have some company, I get money and everything. Great, I don't have to work for a life. I can just chill and do nothing. And then I don't have to deal with anyone being murdered. Just chill, mind your business. Don't fight with the other concubines. Be nice. Who cares that bitch slept with the sultan tonight? None of my business. I have my daughters.
So
there's
no principle.
Yeah, that's his problem. I'm trying to survive.
Wow, that's a modern woman too.
Just mind my business. Mind my business.
Isn't that interesting? Where there's only really a few prototypes throughout time, and it never changes. There's not thousands of type of women. It boils down to just a few choices.
Same thing with men, yeah.
Yes.
We all have
but in
archetypes,
this circumstances, yes. But I'm focusing just on this when it comes to this scenario, because it's very interesting. Because I look at how we talk about things in a historical context, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of years before us.
Yep.
But we notice that there hasn't been much of a shift. It's all stayed fairly the same within the parameter of what we're thinking. So I think it's really interesting how we think that we're so much more than we actually are.
Yeah. No, I'm like, right now, I think about it, I could probably survive there. You gotta not be a bitch. And you gotta not care about the sultan. Anyone who loves the sultan, you're fucked.
You just have to crank it back a couple levels.
Yeah. You just gotta be happy that you're living in a palace and you have servants.
Like, for example...
Don't want more.
Like, for example, me. I am somebody who's always been able to be funny and always been able to just observe things and kind of take in information and share it with people. I think throughout time, throughout history, if I would have just stuck to that and avoided rebellion, then I would have made it.
You gotta mind your business, yeah.
I gotta mind my business. I mean, I can be everything to everybody who will keep their mouth shut, which is everybody, right? And I'll develop my own currency within them. Mm-hmm. Literally, we will exchange goods because of who I am as a person, right? But when it comes outside of that, the minute that I decide that I'm more than I actually am, and I put my foot down in a sense that's very noticeable amongst more of the people than just me, that's when I get the repercussion from society, and not much has changed.
It's like when I'm watching that show, the Haram bitch, she knew how to fucking go under the radar. Her Sultan Suleiman's sister doesn't like her. That's a long reason why she doesn't like her. She's a bitch. And she put some spell on her, witchcraft, black magic on the show. And she didn't sleep for a couple days, and for some reason that girl thought that she could just walk by her and be like, ha ha ha, you're suffering and not get her ass beat. And she beat her ass. She, like, there was blood everywhere. Her face was all cut up. And you know what she could have done was kill her, dump the body, try to cover it up, right? But instead, what she did was she paid off the concubine that was with her and was like, you're gonna say that Hades freed you, and then left after talking to Solomon. And she's like, and then you're free now. We just freed you. And she goes, oh, I love that. I'm gone. So she left, got paid off. And then she took Hades, just dumped her in the woods, and then made sure someone followed her to make sure she got back to the castle safely. So that then she could tell Solomon.
Text me when you get home.
Yeah, then she could tell Solomon that Hiram beat her up, which would get her executed. And then he walks into Hiram's thing, and she goes like, what do you mean? I fainted in the harem yesterday. I've been so tired. I've just been in here. I don't know what you're talking about. I can barely hold myself up. You think I beat someone up? And he's like, but she said you didn't. And she goes, she's kind of crazy lately. And then the concubine, backed up the story by saying, no, she freed me. And he's like, well, shit, then I guess I'm not going to execute her. She got out of it. She beat her ass and she got out of it. And everyone knew it. Like, all her sisters are sitting there. And Hades was like, you guys believe me, right? They're like, yeah, we believe you. But Hiram fucking did her shit. Like, Sultan doesn't care. He believed her. And can you blame her? I believe her if I didn't believe you. Like, they literally were like, her story's better than yours. She covered all her bases.
That's what it takes.
But she let her live. Like, she could have killed her. But no, she let her live. How cruel is that?
Very.
And make her feel crazy.
Yes. But what do we do in our modern day times? It's the same way.
No, I know, but that's what I mean. It was so schemy. I was like,
very schemy.
We're 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago.
Original. That's where it started. I mean, honestly, because
I was like, oh my god.
When we started getting sophisticated as a species, I think it took society in order for us to actually start to scheme on each other.
I feel like that was so humble too, because like, she could have murdered her, and that would be like what someone would do. Like, I'm in the power mode, I'm gonna murder her. But like,
yes, she
made the more humble thing. She's like, I'm so weak.
But you literally are a homicidal freak, so you would have totally relate.
I was like, go, bitch.
Okay. So, I really want to bring up something real quick. We have something going on currently. It's taken over the news, it's taken social media, everything. You see it on TV, everything. We're talking about the Gabby situation. Can you break down a little bit of the story if somebody didn't know coming off the street and you wanted to break them down real quick in like a minute, let them know what's going on and what you think about it?
So, from my understanding, what happened is they go on a cross-country road trip. In her van.
Why? What are they doing?
I don't understand that. I don't know.
Are they influencers? Like, that's what it is.
Well, see, I've heard that she is a wannabe influencer. Not exactly that they are influencers, but that, like, that's her dream to be a travel vlogger, and, like, she was trying to pursue YouTube. Like, I think she had somewhat of a following, but I don't think it's that big. Maybe they're on the rise. Yeah.
Okay. Like 20,000 followers or something? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Like a mini one.
Okay.
And then they went on their vacation. He comes back in her van. She's not there. He will not tell anyone where she is, and he gets a lawyer. Which is just like, cool, so you murdered her. What I assumed happened, especially after seeing the police footage, from when the police got called at some point during their trip because someone saw them yelling, and then they drove off, and he was doing like 45 and a 50. It was weird. So they got pulled over, and the cops were buddy with him, and she was having a full-on breakdown in the video. And literally, at one point, he keeps changing his story about what happened, about how he got the scratches on his face. And at one point, the cops say something to him like, maybe we'll charge her with domestic violence. And he laughs about it. He's like, oh, really? And it was just so weird. And then what I assumed happened is they probably got in a fight while driving, and not like it was okay, but I feel like, I know when I get in a fight with my significant other, I don't want to be around them sometimes, and the urge to, like, get out of the car, right? But, like, you can't actually leave them. That's fucked up.
Right.
But, like, maybe the urge came, and then he was like, get out of the car, right? And then he kicked her out and left her in the desert or whatever for dead, basically.
Right.
And then he knew he fucked up, and so then he got a lawyer, and now didn't want to talk. But now that a body's been found, and they found like that weird cross thing in the same area, now I'm just like, he murdered her.
What's the cross thing? What's that about?
So, I don't know if this is true, but people are saying that, and like I've seen a couple of news articles on it, but I don't really know, that near where her body was found, there was like a cross made out of stones in the dirt.
Yeah, I want to believe that 100%, because that sounds like some shit that people would just throw in there to add more sinister vibes to it. I think, in reality, the whole meat and potatoes of the story is what's true. And anything else is maybe just like trying to go viral and get clicks.
Well, yeah.
Because we know one thing for sure, two things for certain. That he had her out here. And he had power of the whole situation to the point of where, I don't want to break it down, but male toxic masculinity controlled the situation to its final end. Because the cops were linking up with him as far as mentality.
If you watch it, like, they're being all friendly with him, and, like...
It's almost like how the conservative fuckheads are, where they link up in certain situations and just like, oh, yeah, facts don't matter. Yeah, you're a good guy, yeah.
No, exactly.
Wow.
No, it definitely was that vibe, and people in the comments of the video were saying, like, he reminds me of my narcissistic boyfriend, my abusive ex, like, all those things.
Those kind of fuckboys.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that's great. So... yeah, and then, then they found her body, and I was like, oh, okay. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he just had he has anger issues. I'm not saying he's not abusive.
And she might pull up somewhere.
Yeah, and, like, maybe he just dropped her off in the middle of the desert, right?
And she's living somewhere fine.
Alive. Or she's dead because he left her in the desert. But it wasn't, like, intentional homicide. It's not like he beat her to death or murdered her. That's what I was assuming. But now that he found a body, I'm like, ooh. Did you murder her?
I'm thinking as long as she's alive, then he can walk away from this. But the minute she dies, there's no situation.
Well, she is dead. They found her body.
I know, but I'm speaking in the hypothetical sense before understanding that.
And now they can't find him.
There's no scenario where he's fine.
No.
There's no scenario where he walks away from this with no repercussions whatsoever. Even if you had the Johnny Cochran as your fucking lawyer.
Well, like, at this point,
no way.
Even if somehow, right, it turns around and something did happen, or anything, he's gonna get in trouble for talking, though, too, for hiding evidence.
He left her out there.
And didn't tell the police anything.
He had her in a vehicle. So he was, I'm not going to say guardian, but he was in charge of her because he was in her vehicle. It was his vehicle.
It was her vehicle.
Her vehicle. But he was driving it. And in the eyes of the law, if a guy is driving a vehicle, and it would put the context of the relationship into it, they're going to look at the guy like he's guilty.
Oh, no, it was already, so the reason he was viewed as guilty was because he had her van. It's not his car. It's her car. And you have it, and you don't have her, and you won't tell us where she is.
Yes, but I'm speaking to the beginning of the situation. I'm speaking to the beginning. Yes, we're going to end up where you're saying.
Oh.
But I'm speaking just to the very tip of it. Because I want to understand on a level of how the thinking goes into this.
Cops are just stupid. Here's an example of it. I just watched this last night.
That's why you're my best friend.
I just watched this last night, and this is... it's like an interrogation video. Basically, it's a Christmas Day. This dad hasn't heard from his daughter or his daughter's boyfriend in a while, and they were supposed to come up for Christmas. So he asked the cops to do a wellness check, right? Cops show up, and they open the door. He has a huge black eye. His face looks kind of beat up, and he doesn't ask, like, why are you guys here or anything, He just says hi to them, and they're like, explain the situation, and then he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. And then they're like, okay, well, what's she doing? Because it was a girl, like, slumped on the couch, right? And they're like, oh, she's just sleeping. And they're like, well, it's a wellness check for both of you, so we have to talk to her. So he's like, okay. So the cops come in, and the minute they go up to her, she has a bullet wound in her head, she's dead. And the cops are like, we're arresting you. So they're arrested. In the interrogation video that's the part that I actually saw the full thing, he walks in. There's a handcuff on the table because, sometimes they do handcuff people, but he's not handcuffed. And he's in new clothes, too. So they had to get close to his face. You're going to be shocked by the end of this, by the way. This is not going to go the way you think it's going to go. And Cops are stupid. And he handcuffs himself to the table. And then he forgets, tries to stand up, realizes he's handcuffed to the table, and then just sits back down. Really weird shit. Then the cop comes in and they're asking him information, and he just keeps saying, I don't know. And he's lying about things, or saying he doesn't know the things that are basic things that, like, why would you lie about that, right? And then the cop asks him what's the highest grade you finished? And he said, I don't know. And they're like, you don't know the highest grade you finished? And he goes, B. And he goes, not the highest letter grade, like the highest grade, like high school, middle school. And he goes, 8th grade. And he goes, the highest you completed was 8th grade. And he goes, yeah. And he's like, okay, do you have your GED? And he goes, I don't know. And he's like, can you read and write? And he goes, yeah.
What a dumbass.
And the cop, he's like, what the fuck? So then the cop asks, about Heather, right? And the girl was dead. The thing is, he does explain Heather, what she looks like, but some of the details don't make sense. He's explaining someone who's like 16, 17, talking about her in high school, which is when they would have first started dating. It's weird that's what he's talking about.
He's in a mental loop.
Yes, and he seems he's not really there, like he seems very like frightened, right? And he's there as the criminal, like they're like, you killed Heather, right? And they're asking what happened to his eye. And he goes, I got shot in the face with a revolver. And the cop's like, no, you didn't get shot in the face.
You'd be dead.
And he goes, how do you know? And he goes, because you wouldn't be standing here talking to me right now. And he goes, how do you know? And the cop's like, because you'd be dead. Like, no. So then he starts asking more about what happened. He goes, you're not making sense. And then finally looks at him and goes, I think his name was Alex or something. He goes, Alex, there's a dead girl in your house. And he goes, there's a dead girl in my house? And he's like, yes. And when you're trying to find out what happened and why there is, and he goes, who is she? And they're like, that's what we need to find you to tell us. And he was like, is it Heather? And he starts panicking. And I feel so bad now that I know the truth. He starts panicking and he lurches forward like he's trying to.
He killed her.
Wait for it. So he lurches forward like he keeps saying he wants to go home. The cop's like, you can't go home. And then the cop looks at him and goes, wait, stop moving. And he puts his feet up and the cop's like, get your feet down. And like shoves his feet down to the ground and then gets up and goes, I'll be right back. Turns out, Alex did get shot in the face. There was a man named Richard that used to live with Alex, Heather, and him, and he was hitting on Heather, and it made Heather very uncomfortable, and so Alex kicked him out. Well, Richard was embarrassed, and Richard didn't like that, so they made a plan with his dad to murder them. So what he did was, he came 2 days before the police showed up, and he tried to get into the back door, and Alex saw them, and he tried to stop it, and he was able to get the gun in, and he shot Alex twice. What had happened was the bullet went through Alex's left nostril, out the upper part of his right nostril, back through his head. The bullet got stuck in his skull. Then they shot again, and that bullet went through his eye and got stuck in the other side of his skull. Which, the cops are stupid because why did they not get a medical attention?
Yeah.
He got shot in the face twice. He has bullet wounds. And that cop getting really close to him is when they finally noticed that he did. Someone had to dress him because there's no way he dressed himself. He was not in it. So what happened was after that he fell to the ground and they must have thought he was dead and they stepped over him and went to the living room where Heather was cowering and shot her in the head. Put the bullet to her head and shot her. She died immediately.
Wow.
And then Alex woke up, saw Heather on the couch, thought she was sleeping, wandered around the house and went to sleep. Then he woke up the next day. She's still on the couch. He continues to wander around the house thinking she is sleeping. He was still wandering around the house when the cops showed up. They still don't know what he was doing for those 2 days. He was just wandering around the house because he had severe brain damage. He died. He died not long after the cops interrogated him from all of it. Yeah. And literally I was reading the comments of the YouTube video of it, right? And a medic was talking about how it pained her to watch it because all the questions they were asking are questions that medics ask people to make sure that their brain is right. When they get severe brain damage. Like asking about the grade and his name, and it was like things that he was lying about that didn't make sense. His age, what year it was. Why is he lying about all of that? Because he doesn't know what year it is. That's why he was describing.
If your brain's not firing properly, basic things like that are going to come off.
Right. And so like, that's why he was describing Heather in like, as like 17, 16. That's when they got together. It was the earliest memory he had of Heather.
So it's similar to amnesia or dementia.
But also, I guess she was explaining that every question that cop was asking him was killing him quicker, because with the severe brain damage he would have had and all that blood, when your brain thinks it works, it moves and everything. Yeah. So every time he had to answer a question or had to think about it, it was forcing his brain to slob around in the blood and everything.
He was having some sort of repercussion physically.
Yes. Yeah. So it was killing him faster every time the cop was asking these stupid questions and getting mad at him and being rude to him.
Interesting.
And he died, and the cops got sued.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Richard and his dad went to jail for life. Yeah. Cops are stupid.
That's so interesting.
And they literally tried to make the excuse that the reason that it happened was because when they got to the scene, anyone would assume that Alex was the killer. It's like, okay, but they're like, if we'd known he was the victim, we would have gotten medical attention immediately. Okay, whether he's the killer or not, you still have to get him medical attention. Like, why didn't you take him to a hospital, have them, like, from my understanding, if he would have admitted guilt, if he would have said, yes, I killed Heather, even if he did kill Heather, if he got severe brain damage and they didn't get him help first, that confession wouldn't have worked. Because he wasn't in his right state of mind to make that confession. Because he has brain damage. So, like, they shouldn't even been questioning him before taking him to the doctor and having someone verify that he was okay for questioning. And at worst, he should have been, like, chained to a hospital bed, not in a fucking interrogation room. Because then he died. Like, maybe he would have lived, but probably not. And in the mugshot, you see the exit wounds. Like, unless you're assuming that this tiny bitch, like, his eye was so swollen from the bullet going through it. His neck was swollen, and it looked like someone shoved an ice pick through his nose. It was the bullets.
Oh, fuck. Holy shit.
How the cops not think that's not right? He needs medical attention.
Exactly.
They were like, nah.
Nah, he'd be alright.
No, this is gonna be a closed case. It's gonna be good for me. Less paperwork. Yeah.
Fuck. Every corner of the world has its issues.
That was in Arizona. And the cops are stupid. They aren't thinking with their brain all the time.
Dude.
They're thinking like a normal civilian.
Do you think it's interesting how the media is portraying what Biden is like bringing along, as far as like these certain things like the IRS thing and like.
Side note on that, because I almost don't want to talk
about that.
Yeah, it stresses me out. I'm not happy. But this is gonna be controversial, just because of training.
I want to know that shit.
Just because of training and everything.
Yeah.
I almost feel like cops should have to be, like, they should have had to be in the military first.
Okay, because there's an argument that cops that are militarized should not be cops.
And I say it because I almost don't mean that, like, I don't mean that you should be in active duty in the military, but I feel like you should almost be trained like a military person, but not go into active duty. Because the reason why military people that were in active duty don't make good cops because of the PTSD and everything. But the training parts, they're trained how to take people down and not to kill them. And they have all this, like, training on how to do things without using your gun immediately.
But they're overloaded in that aspect.
But that's good because our cops are not good at taking people down and not hurting them.
But can I say this? That when you put that sort of aggression into something, like, it's like putting a species of dog that's a killer into a species of dog that's known very passively to just be able to be a general good dog, like a Labrador.
But before you finish that, Labradors also bite, and they're not doing so great right now, are they?
But I'm just saying...
Without the training.
I'm just saying, because I look at it like this. If you are a soldier who is locked in and knows that civilians of other countries that you've been put in are almost less than, because you have to be so aggressive in the way that you are on them.
Oh, so that's a side thing. From my understanding, certain branches of the military and higher up, you get to do things a little differently.
And I might be speaking to the extreme.
But yeah, because they're not taught to treat these people as less than.
But I think it's their own personalities that come out in the job. The same way the cops are. Because in the with the law enforcement, you have certain cops that are normal, right? But you have some that have some fire inside of them that has to come out in an aggressive way. And they let it be known by the way that they smack skulls, right?
But see, that's another thing then. If you smack skulls, you shouldn't have your job.
But how many do? Because they are able to have the what's the word? With it starts with a W. They're able to be able to desensitize themselves so much that it seems like they're good at their job because they show no emotion towards it.
But see, that's also that should be a red flag, because people who don't show emotion tend to have issues, especially when you're hurting people.
But in the sociopathic lens, is it easy to be fooled by it?
No.
Because I think so. You could have somebody who's fucking crazy, but as long as in a societal level they're able to blend in, they're gonna go on and do all the things. Like, look at the guy who did George Floyd's neck in. I forgot his fucking name, but that guy got 22.5 years.
He had other things that.
He was a socio.
There were red flags. No, he got in trouble for a lot of things. He was doing things he shouldn't have done.
Yes, he wasn't stealth, but he was a socio in the sense that he could blend in enough.
No, the things they were doing
in society.
Any other job, in society, but his job should have been the red flag. Every time he hurt someone, he shouldn't have had that job anymore.
Yeah, because the job's more involved in your life than just a normal aspect of society. They should know what's going on with you. Let's look at my 9 to 5s that I've had. Okay, if I had some sort of issue that in society,
that seems like we're just hitting paper.
Let me finish this thought.
Yes.
In society, on a minuscule level, if I have some sort of conditional issue, you're going to be able to see it and reprimand me from it, right? Mm-hmm. But in normal society, like outside of the workforce, and I'm speaking inside of the workforce, outside of the workforce, if I have this issue, it will go undetected for the rest of my life. Let's speak to CP. I won't say her real name, but you know who I'm talking about. CP.
Yeah, I don't know why you called it her, but continue.
I don't give a fuck, because as long as I don't say her name, I can't be sued.
Are you calling it her? Okay, continue.
Okay, listen to this story. This is what we're gonna do. Okay, she could be a certain place in a work format where everybody understands the whole entire spectrum of her personality. But when she goes into society, there's no way to really dictate, or not dictate, but monetize or not metric her personality to where you're like, that's who she is. Okay, she's at Walmart, she's at the bank, this, that, and the third. But in a work format, you're able to contain it to be like, this is the entire contents of this person's characteristics. Okay, on a societal level, I think that's how people are. That's why we put people in positions like politics and things of that nature where they have power over other people, and we don't really know the judge of their character because we don't have anything to go off of. But outside of that spectrum, it's even harder to understand that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we judge people off of surface level material, and then we get mad when they're liars underneath the surface. We're setting ourselves up for failure. Politics are really interesting in the sense that everybody always puts their best foot forward, like social media. If you look at somebody's social media platform, it's very rare where they downgrade themselves or where they make themselves look favorable of how they should be presented in a personal platform. Like, for example, it's very rare when you find somebody who absolutely degrades themselves and shit posts all day. Right. But when you find them, you follow them on Facebook, because that's me. I'll look at those posts and I'll be like, oh, great, that did something for me. Like, somebody's just posting a bunch of nonsense and that does something for me. They're sacrificing their life, their time, their reality for me to notice the memes that they're posting, and that's just them. Me, I have a lot of important things that I gotta take care of, to the point of where I can't just sit on the internet looking for the most fire shit to fucking post all day.
No, that's what meme sites are for.
And what's interesting is when you look into some of these people's lives, and I'm adding the lens onto this because this is what podcasts do. It's like documentary work.
Okay.
You zoom in on things that nobody would ever look at. But when you look into some of these people's lives, they don't really have a lot going on for themselves. And it's almost at the point of where somebody needs to jump in and help their ass out. Because I've gone to some of these people's houses and they don't have fucking furniture. They're just struggling to pay the rent because that's all that the depression allows them to fucking do. 30 hours a week, 25 hours a week, and then DoorDash or something, something crazy. And I just realized how much of ourselves do we put into the internet and then are left with nothing after the fact. That's what the influencers are going through. In a lot of reality, they don't know how to balance the scale. of keeping some for themselves and then putting shit on the shelf, on the internet shelf, for people to fucking watch, absorb, read. And I think that needs to be spoken to, because it's almost a conversation that's kind of like mental health. Because people think that when you're on the phone, on the internet, on social media, whatever the situation is, that it has no repercussion to you because you feel good. You're laying down and you're in a zone of bliss because literally the world is tuned out and you're just tuned into something. But there are mental health repercussions that come from social media. Like, for example, we could talk all day about Instagram and about certain filters that they've used that have really affected the youngest of our most vulnerable members of society. We don't notice it. We're so desensitized. A lot of us jumped into the internet after we were already developed.
Yeah.
But these young kids are being put into a world that's eating them alive. In a lot of senses, because they don't know the difference between what's real and what's fake.
I feel like that's changing, though, because I feel like most people nowadays just assume everything's fake.
If they're taught right. How many fall through the cracks?
No, I think the younger generation is finally getting to that point, but then they still want it, like, that dream of being an influencer. It's just, that's the new job. It's like being a celebrity. I mean, like being an actor.
I guess when I speak is to the most vulnerable of our societies. The ones like in the foster homes. And the ones who have no real guidance from parental, like, left or right. Like, they're literally just entering a world that's so completely blind. And they know the reality which is in front of them, and then they know the reality that's on the internet.
It's called street smarts. I feel like internet now is street smarts.
Explain that.
Like when you're walking down the street, right? Like, when people ask you for things or, like, ask you for help, maybe in New York, you ain't gonna fucking do it. You're like, no, I'm not gonna help you reach that, because you're gonna rob me the minute I walk away.
If you know.
Right, because you're used to that kind of shit, right? Like, down the street, right?
You have some information beforehand.
Right, because you've had to live with it, right? I feel like the internet's just street smart. You eventually learn that everything on the internet's fake, and if you don't, it's gonna eat you alive. But it's one or the other, and unfortunately, that's just the way the world is.
So you almost speak from a privileged position.
It's not.
You.
Oh.
You speak from a privileged position.
I would say I don't, as someone who has suffered from not only physical issues with how I look, eating disorders and all of that, and social media in some way did really fuel that.
Yes.
But then at a certain point, as I went to therapy and also talking to other people, you look at it and you're like, you know what? Normal people aren't that thin.
But
when
your
I look
parents
around,
too. Like,
they didn't help, but
they had an influence because they're other world.
Right, but they had an influence, a negative one as well, that was not helping the eating disorders. But I used to look at pictures on Instagram.
Right.
There's like hashtags of skinny inspiration or whatever.
Okay.
And I would look at things like that. And also celebrities. Celebrities are all really skinny usually, and they don't have hips or anything like that. And that can be really like someone who, even at my thinnest, I still had hips, right? There was no way to get rid of them, and I was like 90 pounds.
Okay, yes.
What I mean is, like, you look at social media, you look at celebrities, and it can cause issues, which everyone has the same thing with the filters, right?
Yes.
And you either learn that that's all fake, or you don't, and you keep getting worse and worse and worse.
Okay, I want to zoom in on this because, this is
something... I went through it too.
Well, this is what I think is very interesting, because you're somebody who I think is a successful person who went through it and was able to figure out her life. Because if you ever go through this, it's not like a graveyard where you're going to die in. You can totally pull yourself out of a hole that you create, and you can live a normal life. So I think it's really great that I have your perspective on this. And it's odd that the transition ended up here, but I want it. And what I want you to describe is, like, how an eating disorder can manifest. As simple as watching a television show at a young age, or, like how you imagined it all started, from as basic as family, or...
So the main thing is that people tend to get happy when you are maybe not stick thin. Like, because I wasn't fat, but I was chubby, right? People don't seem to notice when you start eating less food or you start going to the gym all the time, because they don't say anything, they actually encourage you.
Because they think you're having a healthy relationship with
Right. Because that's what you can do. Like, yeah, I would eat one meal a day, whatever I wanted it to be. And then after that, I'd have this, like, weird vegan brownie thing that was, like, 180 calories, or I counted out strawberry calories or whatever to make it less than 200, and then I go to the gym and burn 1,000 calories. And it was really slow progress. I mean, first started with the food, and then I started going to the gym, and then I started tracking the calories on, like, those calorie counters, and then it came to, like, if I don't go to the gym, I would hate myself and not be able to eat, and then it just snowballed from there. And I was never skinny enough, no matter how much weight I lost, and people were proud. They'd tell me I look great. I would send a picture, and someone that maybe I hadn't talked to in a couple months would be like, wow, you really lost a lot of weight, you look really good.
You use it as fuel to continue.
Yeah, because people tell me I'm doing good, I look good. So then you keep doing it. Until people tell you you don't look good anymore, you look sick, you look like you do drugs, you need to eat something, and then you eat less. Because as soon as people start making you feel shitty about not eating, you don't want to eat in front of them either.
So you get skinnier.
You get skinnier and skinnier until eventually either you start eating again by, like, accidental, or you figure out a way to make yourself hungry because you don't want to, like, die or something, or you're tired of hearing people say it. Because eventually, whether you can stop or not, because that was part of it, was like, at a certain point I knew I looked sick, I can't stop. Like, it's just becoming aware of it, and maybe getting tired of people saying it to you, and maybe you go and get better, but for a while it can make you get worse and worse. Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
How do you speak to that?
Apparently I don't have body dysphoria. I had straight up anorexia. So body dysphoria, I guess you, like, focus on things. And my issue was when I looked in the mirror, I thought I looked fat no matter how skinny I was. And that's just anorexia. So apparently I don't actually know much about body dysphoria.
But
I never had it.
To the mainstream, what I got from it was you look in the mirror and you see yourself in a lot worse shape than you actually are.
Sort of, yeah. So, like, from my understanding, when my psychiatrist explained it to me, when you have body dysphoria, you you can't look at yourself usually, and when you do, you get, like, fixated on things, like you have a pimple or whatever, and you just get fixated and you think that pimple looks huge, but in reality it's like a tiny little fucking pimple, and you just get fixated and you make it bigger than it actually is. I guess my whole thing was, like, I didn't really want to look in the mirror at all. Like, I would avoid the mirror completely, because I didn't want to see it. And when I did look in the mirror, I thought I just looked really fat. Like, I just didn't, like, I feel like I looked like what I looked like when I started losing the weight instead of what I actually looked like. But that's just anorexia, I guess.
I guess there could be a baseline.
Yeah, there's, like, some crossover there, but, like, I didn't technically have body dysphoria, because that's, like, a whole nother thing. Yeah. It's fun.
So the further and further you go into your life,
yeah,
and you look in your rear view, and you see it, like, shrinking and shrinking and shrinking in the memory, almost as like something that's in a petri dish that you can look in the microscope over and observe on such a magnificent level. Do you think that you've avoided the compulsions that used to propel you in the opposite direction that where you're at now?
No, see, I honestly could not tell you what made me stop completely doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I sit and I'm like, I really wish I could just not eat anymore. But I can't do it anymore. Like, what I used to do, I can't do it even if I wanted to. I don't know how I used to do it. It's weird. Yeah, sometimes I think I want to do it again, and I'll try, and I can't do it. I can't.
Your brain.
I've restarted it like 3 or 4 times in the last since I stopped. Like, since I officially stopped fully hurting myself every day.
Outgrew that. You outgrew your old self.
I don't know. It's really weird. I will randomly, like, subconsciously but also consciously start trying to do it, but it never hits that subconscious point again where, like, I just start doing it. I'm thinking about it, and then I'm like, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go eat something. I just give up. And before, I mean, it was like a mental, like, I could not tell you how I used to do it.
But you didn't have your partner, and you didn't have your Luna. Like, you have...
Well, no, I had my dog.
You were still when you were anorexic?
I had baby cakes, yeah. I had a dog. I've always had
Oh,
a dog.
yes, but I mean the person that you are now. Like, because I'm speaking to your mentality now as opposed to what it was. And what I believe is that if you're in a good state now, it's very hard to relate to where you were. To a point where you can't see yourself snapping back to that because you've gone so far. You've come along in such a positive way.
I mean, I would say that maybe like anorexia or whatever is almost like when people have bulimia or anorexia and like eating disorders. I feel like it is a type of self-harm, probably.
It is self-harm.
You know, yeah. Well, I mean, it is self-harm, but like what I mean is like, I feel like people who have that might be subconsciously like suicidal or something. That's their way of killing themselves. Subconsciously, you know what I mean?
But
not all of everyone. Some people it is fully body, but I feel like that probably doesn't help so much. And so I'm not in a depressed mindset like I used to be.
Right.
So it's probably just like I have the urge to eat and the urge to like live. And before it was so easy to just not care. So
you think that it's not there's no rhyme or reason to it besides the fact that you just grew out of it, maybe, or you snapped out of it?
Yeah, I have no idea. It's the weirdest thing.
I mean, my opinion, and I'm completely crazy in a lot of senses, but I don't think that's the case at fucking all. I think there's a force that took place, whether you recognize it or not.
Well, I have random little spits, like I said, like sometimes I try to start it up myself, right, where I'm like, oh, I want to lose weight, so I'll do this, right, because this was so easy last time. But then also, I don't like to look at calories on meals, because sometimes, not always, but sometimes it'll trigger me. Sometimes I'll be like, ooh, I don't want to eat that anymore because there's so many calories in it. But that's not always.
I have a hot take.
What?
Eating disorders, not all, but some, maybe in the most extreme spectrum, can sit side by side with a heroin addiction. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, can you explain that? Because I've never done heroin, so
right.
I'm really confused where that came from.
It's not heroin, but I'll tell you what.
Okay.
The way that you hide it. Everything about the back end of it, the behind the scenes aspect of it, not the injection or not the drug, but just and how extreme and detrimental it could be to your health.
Well, okay, I don't know if that's true because I feel like they are different in the sense that, like, for one thing, like I said, I was pretty upfront with people about what I was doing.
That might be because of your age and your generation.
And, no, I'd say to people older than me too. No one really...
Look at TikTok. They're so open.
Right, but I'm talking about people older than me too because I worked at a place with a lot older people.
You are an alien too, as a matter of fact.
I would tell people, and it took a long time until I finally told people that, like, hey, by the way, I'm dealing with this. It's going to be fun working with me. And they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, how did you not notice? Because I would literally look at them and be like, yeah, I went to the gym and burned 1,000 calories and now I'm here and I haven't ate yet today. And they're like, and I do that for days on end. And they wouldn't say anything.
Can I tell you right now that I've never met nobody like you and I never will meet another person like you. You literally are an alien.
Why?
Just because the way you talk, the way you think, just that little bit you just said, like, you operate in a sense that's not normal to the normal frequency of what you would see as run-of-the-mill. And people told me I'm an alien because of how different I am in a lot of aspects. But what I believe is that us aliens are here to teach. Eventually. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get through your bullshit and then you put it out on the table and then people, like, pick and choose what they want to learn from it. Like, for example, this conversation we're having right now. Mm-hmm. You went in depth in an eating disorder in a way that maybe not a lot of people would choose.
Yeah, I'm pretty open about it.
The style wouldn't be necessarily as direct.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm pretty... it happened.
And can we talk about that? That's the alien feature I'm talking about. How direct you are about the shit. If you ever watch a TV show and there's an alien, he's telling you exactly what the fuck he's thinking directly. And it's like, that's what aliens are. They tell you exactly what the fuck is on their mind.
I was like, why beat around the bush?
Right.
Let's just jump right to what the important part is.
And I believe that some of us on Earth are a little bit different. We're snapped out of the regular frequency of normal life. And those people are the ones that save the Earth, or in horrible circumstances, destroy the Earth.
Yeah.
And you have people who are billionaires who could fall on either side of the spectrum. And that's why the world is in such a disarray, because everything is a pissing contest for the billionaires as opposed to terraforming the earth and creating a healthier place for us to continue life. If you care so much about living forever, how about we take care of what already exists instead of going to a new planet and turning it into some weird dictatorship that you can control and monetize copyright from the beginning. It's like the guy who invented polio didn't take a fucking copyright for it because he knew that it was for humanity. Like the same way you couldn't copyright the sun. But the person who's going to go inhabit Earth is going to copyright everything where there's a logo on every fucking thing. And that's what's different about the world now as opposed to 50 years ago.
No, it's just that some people, when they see that money's available, like, why wouldn't I go get it? But then some people are like, but that's unethical money, so I don't want it.
Two sides of the
world.
Blood
money.
Two sides of the world. But 50 years ago, that divide was a lot further.
No, I mean, back then that polio guy was probably also called fucking stupid for not making money off that.
Of course he was. But he had the power to do so, and it was implemented.
Yeah, but he's the...
outlier?
Yes, he's the outlier.
Yes, of course. But the fact of the matter is that the outlier ended up on top.
I mean, I don't think he did, because I don't even know his name.
No, but what I meant was he was able to make the decision of bringing this thing to fruition, which matters. It doesn't matter of anything else, it's just a dick measuring contest.
I really do feel like we should know his name, though. It's very interesting that we don't.
We should, yes. But everything outside of the fact that he did the most gracious thing in the world is a dick measuring contest. Everything. So the only thing that matters is the fact that he did the gracious thing. And that's all I'm speaking to. Right? So in the future, if we're going to continue to move forward, we need more people like that. And how the fuck are we going to allow them to move to the front if everything is a dick measuring contest to this fucking day? That's the problem. The problem is the people who are actually exceptional, we push them back and we destroy them on an internet platform.
I think though humanity's always just been doing the whole like dick measuring thing. Like that's just humans. Humans are just like that.
Yes, but still, like advance what used to happen because there wasn't so many people in the way. Like if you had something to say and it made sense and logically across the board it was a go, it went.
That's not how that works at all.
Now
that's how that works, but back
no,
it did not used to be like that. You say you say the wrong thing, you get your head cut off.
No, I'm not going back that far. I'm talking polio still. I'm talking still NASA. I'm talking like in our sphere outside of like the medieval times, like we were speaking earlier. But I'm talking about like in the times that most relates to us now.
Yeah, because it was like when you talk about the
past,
there's a lot of space. You can't just be like, oh yeah, no, like.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of space, dude.
I'm talking about now because it matters now so much. We have to figure out, we have to regrid and reconfigure this humanity thing now in the context of which we've known in the last 100 years. From Henry Ford up. We need to figure this out because cars are a big reason why we are in the problem we are in now. Well, you need to leave this place right now is a big reason that we have an issue globally as far as climate control goes.
Actually, the main reason for climate change and all of our issues is actually because of big businesses. It's not my fault and it's not your fault.
But gas plays a part into it. It's all
gas
part of the tree.
Gas does not help, but it's not like the main issue.
Yes, but I'm speaking to our contribution. What me and you can do and handle control today in the conflict.
Why make us do the things when we can make the big rich people do the things?
Well, we got to be able to speak to it because if we can't translate it to the people, then it doesn't matter.
We got to force the rich people first. Rich people first.
Okay, let's go down from the top of the tree down.
Okay.
Let's talk about the oil companies. What do you understand the oil company infrastructure to be today in 2021? What does it look like? What's that like? Because look at the oil spills that happen in the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
Who's behind that? I remember when BP was behind the fucking oil spill that happened in the Gulf, or Louisiana was. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We had the fucking ocean on fire. That was a month ago or 2 months ago. When that happened, it makes me really wonder about the infrastructure of our gas line piping in the ocean. That's a big issue. It's such a huge, it's almost nuclear.
Listen, we could be doing that a better way. Humans just are doing it the easy way and the stupid way. I don't disagree with that.
But it's on a catastrophic level of almost of a nuclear level. And And I think that we need to really focus in on these things. And I think that accountability on every level is out of the window. I mean, look at even in the airplane world. What the fuck is going on? I'm surprised we don't have more planes flying out of the fucking sky. You know, like crashing. I'm surprised. Because it seems like everything is gone, like there's nobody controlling the plane right now. On a metaphoric level. Like, everybody who's in control, accountability has gone out the window completely. In America, I'm talking about the infrastructure. Okay. We hear so many different things. Like, look at the condos that collapsed in Miami. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, that was the sinkhole.
Yes. But that's what I'm talking about. There's so many things on a global level that we are neglecting because the bigger conversation is what has people's attention. And it's always something that's entertainment based. I mean, like a boxing match between celebrities on YouTube, or somebody smacks somebody in the head with a fucking twisted tea can, or whatever goes viral, whatever can pull 2 to 3 to 5 million people at a given time, whatever has the power to do so, that's where the money goes to. Because it's a big business in distracting the American citizens. Would you not agree?
I mean, yeah, because you don't want us to like rise up and do shit either. The government likes us not to do that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's the big worry? What would be the big deal if Americans were able to like come together and realize that maybe race and sex, transgender, this, that, and the third didn't matter, and the thing that mattered was good versus evil? What would happen in that sense? We would have a big problem on a global scale, because if you look in other countries, they're doing the things that we did 2-3 years ago as far as putting people in the streets and rioting and destroying buildings. Like, that's what they're doing in Brazil. That's what they're doing in fucking... I don't want to name a country that isn't going through that right now, but, like, it's happening everywhere in the world. Right now, currently. And it's just... Did you hear about Haiti and how there's, like... There's a lot of things going on in Haiti right now that are they're reminiscent to, like, the slave time periods. People on horses with whips. Like, cracking the whip on other fucking people. Like... There's a lot of discussion that we're going backwards in time as far as like human rights and things of that nature are going. Like, as far as technology starts to move in one direction, human rights and everything goes in the opposite.
I mean, sometimes we do have to find a middle ground, that's for sure.
That's the solution.
Yeah.
But until then, there's no accountability and no organization to get us to that point. So something that could have took 2 months can take 10 years. And that's where we have an issue. Because you get people who said, no, fuck that. I know other ways to get things done. And by the time that the government comes to shut me down, we're going to have Wakanda built around them. That's a different conversation. That's happening now.
Where?
In America.
Oh.
Can I talk to you about the cartel? And the way that the cartel is building in America right now.
I don't want to. I don't like that.
It would terrify you.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And it's the reason why fentanyl is filling the streets and murdering people on such a high level.
Yeah.
But that might be time for a part 2. We might have to get into that the next time we actually talk. But I think that for the most part, we've gotten our point across today. What do you think?
Next time we're going to talk about cartels and fentanyl.
We'll have to give them that dose. So this is us signing off this time. Stay tucked. Coming back real soon.